Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants. Welcome, everyone, to Screens After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tim.
Hey, Shop S Smart.
Shop Smart. Shop S Smart. And if those introductions weren't obvious, we're here today to talk about Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 3, or sometimes referred to as Bruce Campbell versus the Army of Darkness, which is a really weird title when you think about it, because it's not Bruce Campbell, it's Ash. But whatever. So, yeah, we did obviously Evil Dead 1 and 2. This is the October-thon, of course. We're working through a lot of movies, and we'd like to do one of the shorter franchises every October. And this year, we decided to do Evil Dead, and we did 1 and 2. This is obviously movie number 3. And watching these in a relatively, back-to-back, essentially, over a few weeks, it's really fascinating watching how the franchise changed from movie to movie and how this is so different. But regardless, we'll get into everything. We'll start spoiler-free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers. I do have to ask a question, though, Tim. Did you watch the theatrical cut or the director's cut?
Oh, you know what? It must have been theatrical because I had the original ending.
Yes, not the much different ending. Yes, yeah. I also watched the theatrical cut. I chose the theatrical cut because I actually prefer it a little bit out of the two. Not because I don't like the alternate ending, although the canon ending has to be the original one because the TV show can't happen then if it's the alternate ending. But it's more just because I think the pacing's a little bit better. I think the extra stuff in the director's cut that's sprinkled throughout makes it just the pacing just drag a little bit for me. So but my theatrical. So
I forget what my Blu-ray copy even has. I'm not sure if it even has the option. I forget. I have to double check.
Well, actually, my Blu-ray drive on my PS4 died when I tried to play this yesterday, so I had to watch it another way. So, so
wait, before your Blu-ray player died, and now your PS4 died.
Well, my PS4 still works. It's just the disc drive that doesn't work. So I can still play all my games are digital, so I can still play my games on it. But just the disc drive doesn't work. So I literally have no Blu-ray player right now because both my drives have died. Now they were both old. Like my PS4 is 7 years old and my Blu-ray player was 10 years old. So I mean I can't be that mad. But it's unfortunate timing is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So yes, Army of Darkness, we're going to get into it here. So basic premise, obviously Evil Dead 2 sets up that Ash is sent back in time to the 13th century, I think he says. And he ends up in medieval times and has to help the knights of the castle fight off the Army of Darkness, the army of the undead. It is pretty much what it says on the tin, and that is so different from Evil Dead 1 or 2. And he is full-blown Ash, he's full-blown cheesy Bruce Campbell with one-liners, cheesy references, the whole thing. This is kind of where Ash really becomes Ash that we know and love and then expected in the TV show later on. So, which we actually reviewed together, by the way. You can get our review of all of the TV show on the channel if you want to search it out. I mean, the answer's pretty obvious to this question, but Tim, how did you feel about Army of Darkness?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I still love it. Again, I'm a very big Evil Dead fan, and then this movie is definitely a departure. At this point we're in like full blown comedy town. Like, not that like I wouldn't consider this a horror movie. Like I would say like it's definitely like horror comedy or whatever. But yeah, like a lot of the horror elements have basically been kind of like laid aside for more of the comedic stuff. But I mean, and maybe a lot of it is nostalgia from watching as a kid, but I mean it all still works. Like, Bruce Campbell is he's kind of a smarmy asshole, but hey, he really makes it work, and it's very hard not to like him in this doing the cheesy lines and stuff. But I mean it's still like tons of fun, and lots of cool like set pieces, and the effects all look really nice. And it's interesting because I do like, I think this was the first one of these movies that I was aware of, because I don't think I actually watched them until I was probably in like maybe like middle school or something. But I feel like I must have seen this trailer at some point, because it just like when they doing like a lot of the battle stuff, it just like looks so familiar to me, like seeing it as a kid, like either at the movie theaters or on TV. I must have seen like lots of commercials or trailers or something for this.
Yeah, I don't know which what I knew of first. I think I saw them in order. I think I saw Evil Dead first, then 2, then Army of Darkness. By luck, perhaps. I'm not even sure. What I was thinking about when I was watching this actually is that technically speaking, from Ash's perspective, it's only been like a day or two since he went up to the cabin. And,
that's true, yeah.
And he was college age in the first one, but now obviously it's been like 15 years. But he's technically supposed to still be that age. Like no time's supposed to have passed for him. So I think that's kind of funny.
Yep. Fighting Deadites will age you.
Yeah, they will. Yes. It's funny because I'm watching the movie and it's starting, and we mentioned in Evil Dead 2's review, of course, that the ending of Evil Dead 2, even though he does go back to the past, doesn't really match up with the start of this at all. Because the end of Evil Dead 2, they're all cheering for him and all the rest of it. Whereas here he starts off and he's in shackles and he's been led to his death because they think he's part of the rival army, you know. But I'm watching it and I'm going, yeah, this is the cheesy one and it's the fun one, and I'm like, maybe this is the weakest of the three actually. Maybe in a pure directing and like story level, it's kind of the weakest from a stylistic point of view. And I actually do think that's true. When I got to the end of it, I'm like, I think from just a raw movie making perspective and atmosphere and like, it's definitely the one that feels the most loose and doesn't feel, and despite the fact that it's got more of a budget, I actually feel like it feels cheaper in some places. Like, it's the sort of thing where there's points where they're obviously on a soundstage, but because the first two had to be shot in a real forest and there was never a soundstage, they actually look more real, bizarrely, than some of this movie, which is shot in like elaborate sets and things like that.
Or like there'll be time when like they're fighting like skeletons at the end, but it's like it's very obvious the skeletons are just like standing still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of goofy stuff with that. And I'm not really trying to rag on it for that, but it actually loses some of its kind of mystique from even the second one, never mind the first one, which is all mystique and like horror. And that sounds like I'm about to be really negative and harsh, but I'm making this point because I'm building up to the point where the first time Ash opened his mouth properly, which is, and I remember the line because I cackled at it because I'd forgotten about it, is I guess what's the rival Henry the Red. He says that he's Henry the Red, he's in charge of the Red Army, and Ash turns to him and says, "You ain't in charge of but two things, Jack and shit, and Jack left town." And it's at that moment I'm like, okay, I remember why I like this movie. Like it's like all the other stuff is like fine. Like I don't think Evil Ash, that's the main villain, I don't think that the Army of the Dead are remotely as interesting as like the Deadites in the first two, and I don't think that the actual plot is that great. Some of it's really goofy. Not that Evil Dead 2's like goofy elements, because it does, but you come to this movie for Bruce Campbell just being the most Bruce Campbell that he's ever been, and that's what it is. That, and when he's saying things like, "First you want to kill me, now you want to kiss me." Blow, every one-liner he has, every time he gets, he makes his speech about his boomstick or anything else. There's a reason why this movie's endured in popularity and pop culture, and these are the reasons why. It's these things, and
it's so I feel, or like I feel like people like quote so many like they act like Evil Dead has like so many quotes and stuff, but it's really they all come from this. Like there's like a few lines in like Evil Dead 2 and stuff, but like all of the lines you associate from them like are really from this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I do think this is the weakest of the three in terms of a film, in terms of like the production. Even though it's got the biggest budget, I actually think the production like quality is higher than in the first two, or at least the aesthetic is, and the direction's better. I think this is a lot more like normal, and the very Danny Elfman sounding music at times. There's a point where the army's getting ready, like late in the movie, where it legitimately sounded like the music from Batman Returns when the penguins are all marching out of the city, and I was like, man, I remember noticing this.
I mean, I wonder if part of that is because this is like an actual like studio movie, like because I mean the first ones were both just independent, right?
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah.
So like they didn't really have anyone telling them what to do.
The first one especially is basically a student film. They were shooting that at the weekends while they were either at school or working during the week. Like
so I don't know. Like I do wonder if some of the like again I still love the movie and I think a lot of it works, but I wonder if some of the stuff that like you said maybe loses some of the mystique or whatnot. Like if that is more because of having to transition to working with like a studio and now having like producers and stuff and I don't know, I wonder if like that's why they don't really call it Evil Dead 3, like if they I don't know if they were worried that like not enough people know what Evil Dead is. I don't know, it's a very strange that they kind of even made this movie and that like they went with this plot and stuff. But
also just an amendment on something I said. There is actually one piece of music in this that is actually done by Danny Elfman. He's not the main composer.
Oh, wow.
He did the March of the Dead, which that might be the one that I thought sounded really Elfman, because I actually do like the track that plays during the training montage. I like that track, but anyway, so no, so it is a fun movie. It's good. It's wacky. Bruce Campbell is just being super Bruce Campbell, and that's what's so fun about it. I was laughing a lot during it. But I do think in terms of film quality overall, it is the weakest of the three.
No, I mean I definitely agree with it.
Yeah. Which I don't think I would have said. Like I think if you'd asked me from memory before, I might have said I don't know. I mean, I said one was the weakest, and I actually don't think that at all now. I think one is really strong. I was surprised by how much I think that held up when I watched it. Whereas this, there is some effects in this that kind of aged oddly poorly. Like,
sure,
I commented as I was watching it is that this came out a year after T2 and a year before Jurassic Park, so it's kind of in this weird transitionary era where they were still doing all these goofy old ways of doing effects, but there's obviously the cream of the crop. We're starting to push these new, like next level things. So
I like when the when he's fighting all the tiny ashes and like the one scene where they're like trying to like hold his nose hold his nostrils. It looks so bad.
It does. It looks really, really bad. And there's a lot of like obvious like doubles in that scene as well. They don't even try and hide. Like I'm like, you couldn't do the whole thing where you film them multiple times and Bruce Campbell has a lot to do in this movie because he's playing the villain as well as being in almost every scene as Ash. And then you've got the little Ashes where he's doing some of that as well. So there's a whole lot going on with Bruce Campbell in this movie. But you've got your third Linda. Arguably, if you want to call Sheila the fourth Linda, and then the woman towards the end is the fifth Linda. A lot of Lindas in this movie. So no, it's baffling to me just how much of a remake of this Oz the Great and the Powerful is. Look, it's the exact same plot.
I really have to go and watch it. I don't have any notion that it'll be good, but I am very curious about it.
No. Except instead of Bruce Campbell, you've got James Franco just playing everything very straight.
That does not sound fun.
No. It was not. It was not.
Sorry. It always kind of reminds me of the third Back to the Future movie too, where it's just like such like a wild like step where it's like the first two feel very in sync, but then like the third one's like, oh, all of a sudden they're back like way back in time.
Yeah, at least Back to the Future already had time travel in it though.
True. The other thing it kind of reminds me of, which this is the one reason why maybe I would have liked the director's cut ending is it kind of reminds me for like a couple of years we had a really strong run on Daredevil, and like there would be like with starting like with Brian Michael Bendis. I don't know if it was like a thing where like everyone was trying to do this, but like whenever someone would end their run, they would always end it in like a really big cliffhanger of like, all right, what are you gonna do with the character next? Like when Bendis left, he had the like Daredevil was like just going to jail, and then Brubaker picked up, and then like when he ended his run, it was like Daredevil just got like it became the ruler of the hand, and then I think Andy Dillon after that, and then I want to say I think his run ends with like I think Daredevil died at the end of that, or quote unquote, like when a comic book character dies.
Yeah.
But it always kind of reminded me of that with these movies where it's like, you have the first one ends with like looking like the force is coming straight at Bruce Campbell, and then the second one ends where like he goes back in time, and then if you had the director's cut on this, like,
but it's the director doing it to himself.
Yeah, that's true.
I waited some really odd cliffhanger, but to the point where every single one kind of has to retcon the ending of the previous one a little bit, because he wants to, like, okay, well, I want to have it be that no one trusts him at first, so I don't want to do the cheering thing from the end of 2. I'm going to redo it. So it's kind of weird in that sense, but it's a fun movie. Like, Army of Darkness is delightful and well worth watching. So I will get to spoilers. I'll take this time to thank our Patreon producers at the time of recording. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Tribesman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are Patreon producers for the month. That means that they are $20 or more patrons, and you can, of course, support us at that tier if you want to be a producer too. But you can support us for just $1 per month, and you can get bonus episodes of the show every month. You get 4 this month for the Octoberthon, but every month there's a bonus episode added. There's a back catalogue now of about 20, probably close to 25 now, episodes, and you get access to all of them, of course, for that $1. And then you get the voting rights, you get early access at $5, and there's other stuff at the higher tier. So go and have a look and see if you're interested, and help keep all the content coming. But yeah, so full spoilers for Army of Darkness from this point on. And yeah, so it starts with kind of a previously on Evil Dead kind of thing again, where they've reshot. In fact, I joked we got the third Linda because we do literally get a third actress playing Linda at the start of this. And I'm like, wait, that scene of them arriving at the cabin, he's literally done 3 times now, in 3 different movies. But here we are. But he goes back in time.
And then maybe I'm wrong. Is the person that plays Linda in this one? I think wasn't someone like a little bit more notable.
I don't know. I'll go find out. I'll scroll up and check. Why?
Oh no, I don't think I've really noticed it before.
Oh, it's Bridget Fonda.
It was like, that's actually like, that's like a known actress, and I don't think I ever really realized that was her.
Yeah, I only really know her from Lake Placid, I think.
Oh, yeah, I mean, she's like definitely. I don't know if maybe she's done like anything super recently, but I mean that's definitely like a name, Like, she's been in stuff.
Oh, it's definitely more of a name than any of the other Lindas. I guess,
no offense to the other ones. I mean, they're all great, but
I guess the big thing at the time is that she was in Godfather Part 3 just a couple of years before.
Oh, okay.
So
Godfather, 2 great third movies that she's been in.
Very good. Her first role was an uncredited one in Easy Rider. She was a kid in that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fancy that. So there you go. It's Bridget Fonda. So anyway, it goes back in time, and they don't trust him. They think he's with the Red Army, and they got a pit in the castle, which has a deadite in it, and at first they just tease it by throwing another guy from the army in, and we just get this gushing like pour of blood coming up from it. Which I have to admit is a bit of a cheat to me, because when he goes down there and it's just a deadite, I'm like, wait, how did the deadite do that?
Sure.
Deadite can't do that.
I mean, you had the the cabin in the first one like sprayed like torrents of blood, like I don't know, maybe it's some type of deadite trick or something, or I don't know.
But he gets thrown down, and that's when we finally see what is down there. And he actually does quite well. This is something I liked about it watching it again, is that he actually holds his own with no weapons. He's just kind of using his legs and his feet. He's fighting back to the point where the others are starting to this is how's he doing so well. They have to actually start the spike walls coming in. They have to sort of intentionally try and trap him and make it harder. But luckily, there's the one sort of prophet guy of the time who thinks that he might be the chosen one, and he throws him down his chainsaw, and we get the chainsaw falling down, and he's just landing on his stump. He just puts his arm up, and it lands on his stump. And it's
like a nice little like click into place, like.
And he kills a Deadite, but then like this like wall mud creature demon comes from the wall and starts attacking him. He grabs the chain, narrowly gets out of the pit, and comes up. The creature eventually jumps up to him as well, but this is after he makes his boomstick speech. Because everyone's in shock. They're like, oh my god, he got out. Oh my god, maybe he is the chosen one. And they're debating, like, you know, what to do, like, because, you know, the one guy wants to have a duel with them and kill him and all the rest of it. And eventually, out of nowhere, he blasts his shotgun, right? Where the shotgun was and where he got it from, I'm not entirely sure. You assume that one of the knights has it from when they got him.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, because obviously...
I thought you meant in general. I was like, well, he had it in the second one, but okay.
Obviously, it came with them, but I mean, like, the prophet dude threw down the chainsaw, but where was the shotgun? Because he didn't have it, and it just, you know, he has it when he shoots it. So
yeah, good question.
But then he makes his speech, you know, about the boomstick. You know, the S-Mart, top of the line, retails for about $109.95, all that stuff.
I love that he like has such like reverence for his like shitty job. Like, like most people wouldn't care that much if they worked at like a, you know, convenience store or whatever, but I love I mean, maybe this is heresy to say, but like Ash is just kind of like a lame dude. But like, well, I mean, you love him for it.
Yeah, that's kind of the joke, though, is that he's terrible at everything except he's really good at fighting Deadites. Like that's it's almost a meta joke in this movie that he is absolute garbage at everything but that, and that's what impresses everyone and makes them think he's the chosen one. So they all kind of herald him as this, especially because the monster jumps out the wall one, and then he blasts it a bunch of times and whatnot, which leads to him saying, okay, how do we get me back home? And it cuts to him being fed grapes as he's lying there, he's being pampered. The woman, the love interest Sheila, who wanted him dead because her brother was killed by the Red Army, now she's like, I'm sorry, my lord, you're, you know, the magical special person. He fights a Deadite, has some more one-liners. Of course, when he kills this Deadite, he has to shoot his shotgun over his shoulder and shoot him from behind. Of course he does. It's a delightful moment, though. I'll give it that. But
I do wonder if like some of this was like Bruce like going up to Sam and being like, "Listen, you've been torturing me like for these last two movies. Can you at least give me some like give me some cool stuff to do? Like maybe maybe some women."
He's getting tortured later again. Don't worry. So it's not like he gets out of this one scot free. But you know, he does the thing where he shoots over his shoulder, and then he kind of does this thing where he kind of like almost, I want to say orgasms, but he kind of like sort of like as he's bringing the gun down after he shot it, he's kind of like, ooh, he kind of shakes a little bit. He's into it. He's feeling it.
It's so it really is so great, man. There really is like no one like him. Like it's just so like there's so much like dumb stuff he can do, and you can't help but love this character.
I mean, we have to talk about the fact that Ash somehow knows how to build a robotic hand,
of course,
out of material in a blacksmith in the 13th century. And it's one thing, like I buy that he can build like a sort of prosthetic hand out of metal and stuff. Like it's just like a hand-shaped thing. But see, when he closes it, you get the sound effects. The sound effects are very specific here. It sounds like there's like actual like mechanical moving parts. It sounds like a robot hand opening and closing, going zzz, zzz. So wait, did he also develop like some sort of battery for this thing so he could control it? Like,
there's so much stuff that's in the trunk of his car. If he has books on chemistry, I'm sure he has books on robotics.
Yes.
Which, you know, I didn't realize before. I don't think I ever caught this, but when I watched it yesterday, I noticed he had some comic books too.
Fangoria.
Yeah, there's Fangoria, and then there was one. It's maybe a little hard to see, but it was had a big DPH, which I think is Dark Horse Presents.
Okay.
I was like, oh, cool.
It would surprise me if Dark Horse had done some Evil Dead comics at some point. It seems like the sort of place they might have done.
Yeah.
But
I know like Dynamite has the license now, but I feel like they might have had comics like before then.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So he's got on this quest to get the book because the prophet needs the book to let him go back to his time. They also want the book to like save them from the army of the undead and blah blah.
And you know what's funny too is like watching this, like I always thought it was kind of weird. Like I was like, oh man, like why are these two? I don't know what they are, like countries or villages or whatever, or palaces. Are like, why are they at war with each other when you have this like, you know, deadite disease like running around? Like, shouldn't that be like a bigger thing that unites and brings them together? But then just thinking about the world today, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that's not that unbelievable.
Fair point.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Sheila does get it on with him before he leaves for this quest. Give me some sugar, baby, to be precise. But he we have the whole thing where he's told that when he gets to the book and he takes it, he has to say Klaatu Verada Nikto, which I remember because not only is it the phrase in this, it's also a phrase that's used in Day the Earth Stood Still, the classic sci-fi movie, which I assume is no accident. Sam Raimi's probably intentionally been a nerd. But he goes off on his travels. He ends up running from the POV camera through the woods, which you can tell this movie's got a bigger budget because in this one, some of the trees have been rigged to like split in half as if the POV is going through the trees, as if the force of the supernatural entity is like splitting the trees in half. So you can tell they're amping it up a little bit. But he gets to a windmill, and I love that Ash has experienced enough now that he actually anticipates that his reflection is going to come to life and be evil and try and kill him. He knows this is going to happen because it happened in the second one. So he preemptively smashes the mirror. What he didn't predict, though, is that this would mean that lots of many little ashes would come out of all the different bits of glass and attack him that way.
Yeah.
Which leads to a lot of like straight up, slapstick comedy stuff.
It feels like it's very funny, but also feels like very like old school, like I don't know, like Three Stooges or like something kind of comedy that you would see.
Well, there's some Laurel and Hardy stuff, I'm sure, when they do like see when he's like on the ground after he's been grabbed and the skeleton hands are coming up and like try to like poke him in the eyes and stuff like that. That's like straight up, classic comedy stuff like that. But I obviously there's some fun stuff here where he's trying to fight back and he like steps in one, but they hold up a nail so he gets like stabbed in the foot. He eventually they hold his mouth open so that he swallows one of them, which leads to the evil Ash growing from his shoulder. It starts with just an eye, which I thought was a really good prosthetic. Actually, you can see the eye moving. It's like a really nice effect. And then you have
regular William Birkin.
Very good. I appreciate that reference. It's a proper Resident Evil reference. But then you see like the sort of second half body. It's clearly a dummy. This doesn't look quite as good. But you've got Ash running around with a second sort of arm and like chest and head kind of sticking out of him. And then you get to the point where there's like almost like two full people like co-joined, and then eventually you have Ash versus evil Ash, and which leads to the big one-liner of good, bad, I'm the one with the gun moment kind of thing. Where he wins and he shoots evil Ash and buries him, which is all fine and well until he fails to say the words when he gets to the book.
And I do like that there's multiple books too. I think it's a fun gag.
Oh yeah, because I actually thought the effect looked really good too. The one that sucks him in. See when he's actually climbing back out of the book, I thought that looked really good.
Yeah, it's such like a weird gag. It's like, all right, this is like a full-on cartoon at this point, but again, it's like, yeah.
I mean, the whole face stretching thing afterwards, I wasn't as. It did feel a bit weird to me though. He'd do that one first and then do the flying book, try to hit him 1 second. I felt like no, do the flying book one first because that feels smaller, and then do the sucking in and like climbing out. That's your bigger effect. Do that 1 second, but whatever. But he goes. Do you know what I love though? He remembers when he's going for the third book that he's supposed to say the words, but I'm like, you tried to pick up the first two without saying them, though. Like, what if those were right?
That's true.
Not that he says them anyway. Klaatu Verada. There it is. I love that he looks around though. He's like sort of side. He goes to the side. Yep, there it is. I said it. Okay, taking the book now.
Yeah. I love like later when he's talked to him, he's like, I said them mostly, basically.
Not every tiny little syllable, but I more or less got it right. Yeah, so this actually raises the army of the dead. It raises the evil Ash again, and he's all demonic looking now and like mutilated. And yeah, so he comes back. He wants to be. And like this is where he fixes all the skeletons that are coming out of the graves. But he wants to just go home. He doesn't want to stay and help them fight. They're livid that he didn't say the words because now there's deadites coming for them and skeletons and whatever. And you know, Sheila calls him a coward, but then Sheila becomes a deadite and says that he, you know, like they're all doomed. And this actually convinces Ash to make a stand, where he stands up in front of everyone and says, "All right, stand with me. We will fight back. You know, we will do this. We'll do that." And one by one, they all. I think if it was a failure of the movie, is that there's no one at the castle that I actually give a shit about. Like, I think that's the one thing that would maybe make it a lot better is if I actually cared. Like, because there's the one knight who kind of doesn't like him, who's got like the really straight fringe, but he doesn't really have that much of a character. It's very paper thin, I think.
It feels like he's supposed to be more of a character, but really you never like. I couldn't even tell you his name.
Oh,
like,
not at all.
Yeah, but like, yeah, it seems like they are kind of starting off with like having them have some type of rivalry that you'll think like, yeah, they'll end up coming together or whatever, but it doesn't really play out to much.
Yeah. I it's one of those things where I think if I cared more about the people in the castle, I might be more emotionally invested as opposed to just having fun with Ash. But they definitely feel like nothing. So this scene where they all kind of like stand behind Ash just feels kind of rushed in a weird way because it doesn't feel like he earns their trust here. He makes this big speech, and I kind of expected them all to just be like, "Ah, no, you're a loser and a coward. Like, why would we trust you?" But hey, they do it, and we get a great montage out of it where he's training them. Why he's good at spear combat to train them all with a spear, I don't know. He has a chemistry textbook in his car though, so he makes some bombs. What's said chemistry textbook? You know.
He also just pimps out his car to be like this like battle wagon. Like,
we don't see that in the montage though, do we?
I guess not really. No, you just get the reveal later.
Yeah, you get the reveal when the actual this is the thing, that the last chunk of the movie is just the big battle where Sheila is now like an evil deadite version of herself, and evil Ash has his army of skeletons, and they're storming the castle. They've got a big battering ram and all these things.
At some point, the skeleton seems to have found some naked women to capture.
Yeah, there's random topless women walking around at one point in the villain stuff. Yeah,
I want to say this feels like this is more of a Dino De Laurentiis thing as opposed to something Sam Raimi would do. It seems like very like, even though, you know, Ash is being very cheesy and like, you know, like making a lot of sexual jokes, like it still kind of feels weird just to, I don't know, have topless women in it.
Yeah, it's just kind of random, especially since it never really comes up again that they're there, I don't think.
Yeah.
So
it's like, what are skeletons gonna do with that?
Yeah, the skeletons do a lot that they shouldn't be able to. They're speaking without vocal cords. They're one of them is playing a flute, a bone flute.
Yeah.
Without any lungs. Like, you know, there's questions to be had about the logistics of some of this. Yeah. I think it's fair to say. But the battle's fun. You know, Ash has more one-liners. He straight up does the Bane backbreaker on one of the skeletons at one point. Like, you know, I think if there's maybe a fault of it, I think the movie kind of peaks a little bit when it's all the stuff in the windmill and in the books and the skeletons. I think that and the fighting of Evil Ash, right? I think that part of the movie is where it peaks and it feels the most Evil Dead. This stuff at the end, the big battle, it's a bit, you know, like, I don't know if I really wanted to see Ash sword fighting someone. Like, you know, it's maybe not what I'm here for Evil Dead to see. Yeah. Kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a little strange. Because like you could have done more stuff of like you could have done like Evil Dead in a castle or something, like with like, hey, like things are starting to come alive or whatever, or you know, I don't know, but I mean, there's still like a lot of fun stuff here, but yeah, it's maybe not the highlight necessarily.
I do wish the the last act did remember it was at least a bit of a horror movie, because it never feels like it once it gets to that point.
For sure.
The horror stuff, once he gets back to the castle from then on, it's just kind of this, light-hearted adventure sort of siege movie. And I kind of wish it remembered that he had a chainsaw. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the car. When he comes out with his stripped up car, and he's like, "Welcome to the 20th century, bitch," and he's got like spikes on it and like a flamethrower or whatever he's got. Like that was fun. It was. I did enjoy that a lot. But the demise of Evil Ash isn't that like exciting. I don't think. He falls off. He comes back as just a skeleton. He gets catapulted and blows up into the sky. Like, it's all right.
He does a very like cartoony reaction where like his like head pops open and there's like a steam sound.
Yeah, it was full cartoon. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, Evil Dead 2 was also pretty wacky. I just kind of wish that the last act remembered that it's supposed to kind of be a horror movie too.
Sure. Yeah.
So, it's one of these things where it feels a little bit. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. A bit like I don't know, a bit less fully formed than the first two do. But I mean, it's still enjoyable time because of Bruce Campbell, because of the cheese, because of all the one-liners and all that stuff. Right. But like I say, I do think it peaks a bit earlier.
Sure.
That said, I do love the ending. Back at S-Mart.
That is, it's a little bit more horror-y at that point.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that though. Like, I think the action, even when he gets back to S-Mart.
I love him like riding on the little cart and
because he grabs a shotgun from the gun section and he has no reason to throw it into the air, because he throws it into the air and then jumps in the cart and then catches it, and I'm like, why couldn't you have just jumped on the cart with the shotgun in your hands? You didn't have you literally didn't have to do that. But he grabs it and starts firing immediately at the Deadite, who's flying towards him. Like, this sequence at the end is great. Like, I love this ending sequence. And the whole point is that he's back at the store, he's still doing his same old dumb job, but, when the Deadites show up, he's good at it, and then he grabs the new girl and he's like, hail to the king, baby. I think if, I can see Evil Dead 1 working without Bruce Campbell. Right, I totally can.
Sure.
And arguably we kind of get that with the new one, but Evil Dead 2 is a bit more borderline, where he does add so much to what Evil Dead 2 is. But I think Evil Dead 3: Army of Darkness, I think if you took Bruce Campbell out of this movie, it wouldn't be good.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah, like there's like so much stuff that's just reliant on his like charm, his presence. It would be like such a strange movie without him. Like, it would be like I doubt it would have like the kind of like cult success that it has now.
I think it would just be like a kind of weird, goofy adventure story without without great effects or without like characters that we cared about. I think you take Bruce Campbell out of this, the entire thing falls apart. So, which isn't necessarily, I mean, it's kind of a critique, I suppose, because I'm saying they could have done other things better, but but it's more that this one relies purely on him, and whereas I think the first two, especially the first one, can work without him. The second one's kind of an interesting example because I think the direction's better, and I can see it working with someone else, but Bruce Campbell does add a lot to it though. So obviously I wouldn't want to take him out of it, but so but it's a fun time. I feel like I've been a bit more critical of this one, and I don't want to make it feel like I'm being overly negative, because I do think it's a really fun watch, but it is the weakest of the three for sure, I think.
I mean, I'd agree with that, and I mean, just for at the very least, just in terms of like, it's a franchise where it is still a horror franchise. You still want that horror element, and this is definitely pretty lacking in it, but I mean, still very fun. I
do love that it exists, because it's just this weird, like, let's just do this type of movie kind of thing with this character. I love that it just commits to what the ending of 2 more or less set up. So I really appreciate that. But I guess like some of the things that I have a problem with Sam Raimi and other films are creeping into this one a little bit, and I guess that makes sense. But it's still a good time, and is a nice sort of like light film to sort of like take you down again after the first two. So
and what we should probably mention, just because maybe it is one of the more I don't know, famous alternate endings, but you know, if we talk about what happens in that.
The alternate ending, of course, is that because in the theatrical version, you see him riding off, and you know he's been given something to drink to take him back to present day, and it just fades to S-Mart, and he's there, and we get the ending scene.
And
yeah.
Oh no! Oh, sorry. Go on.
I was gonna say and then the alternate ending, we see him take the potion and sort of go to sleep in his car, I think, and in a cave,
and he like of course, like him still being kind of a doofus, like accidentally takes the wrong amount.
That's right. Yeah,
he very
actually
specifically says like, no, you can only take like 3 drops or whatever.
Yeah, but when he wakes up and he comes out of the cave, it's the post-apocalyptic world. Why he's suddenly in Paris? Because I'm pretty sure the Eiffel Tower's in the background.
Is it the Big Ben? I thought. Or...
Oh, is it Big Ben? Either way.
Well, I think, I guess one thing we kind of forgot to mention, because we always think, or you basically always say, okay, the end of Evil Dead 2, he travels back in time, but he also travels he
travels locations. To England. Yeah, he travels to England. Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it would make sense if he just remains there and then.
Yes, because we all know there's caves at the edge of London.
Of course.
But yeah, he comes out of the cave and it's this post-apocalyptic future where everything's destroyed, and he just sort of yells, "You idiots! You set me too far!" Even though it was his fault because he didn't follow the instructions. It's a really fun ending, and it's kind of something they essentially redid for the end of the TV show, in a way. It was not the exact same, but it was the same kind of idea. It was a post-apocalyptic future, and he's there to be Ash in the future, kind of thing. But I think I prefer the theatrical ending because I really like the whole scene. Like I like the action of it.
Yeah.
But also because, well, we need a TV show, and we can't have the TV show if the movie ends like this.
No, totally. I think the theatrical version is definitely better. It fits the movie more for sure. I do like the alternate ending. That's like, it's kind of fun thinking about like what could have been, like if that was the actual ending, and then if they did end up making a 4th movie, which like something they were talking about like for a long time, but and obviously now we're getting more movies, but it's not it's more Evil Dead stuff, but not like this kind of Bruce Campbell through line. But so it is interesting to think about what they could have done with that. But like you said, though, this other ending gives way to the TV show, which I absolutely adore. The TV show is great. Probably we'll do a rewatch of that soon.
Yeah, the TV show's really good. Not always perfect, but a lot of high points, sure, in that show. Yeah, season 2 in particular was good stuff, I thought. Yeah,
the hit television show Ash vs. Evil Dead.
How dare you? Don't quote my phrase. Don't you dare. So no, I mean it's a delightful watch for sure, and kind of a weird oddball way to end a trilogy, I suppose. I suppose we're at the point here where we're going to rate the film.
What would be fun, like if it would be kind of wacky, but I would like to see him try to do something like this for like a bad guy in a horror movie. Like imagine if like probably wouldn't work with Michael Myers, but like if like Jason Voorhees went back in time, like
yeah, I could see that. I could have a blast with that. Well, we sent him to the future already in space, so why not?
That's true. Yeah.
Why not the past? Yeah. So how about we send him back to like feudal Japan? So all the samurai think they can take him on, only to be just macheted.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
There's ideas to be done here. There's ideas. So I guess we're at ratings, Tim. So what are you going to give Army of Darkness?
So I'm gonna. I agree. It's definitely the weakest of this trilogy. I still have a ton of fun with it though, and I like it a lot. I mean, so much of it is nostalgia from watching as a kid, and like, just loving this character and stuff. So I'm gonna give it an 8, which pretty high score. I mean, definitely not as high as the other two. Evil Dead 2, I give 10 out of 10, and I forget what I give the first one. Might have been 8.5 or 9, because I really like that solid horror film. But it's definitely not as good as that, but still, very fun, funny, charming interesting kind of oddball movie, but yeah, I like it.
I'm kind of oddly conflicted here with my score because, on the one hand, I was cackling at Bruce Campbell every time he was doing anything like Bruce Campbell, and I was like, oh man, this Bruce Campbell stuff's even better than I remembered. But other elements of the movie are kind of worse than I remembered. I guess the way I'd put it is that the movie's very hokey, and that's intentionally so. And I think it works when Bruce Campbell's there. And when Bruce Campbell's being Ash and he's doing his thing, it feels like it fits the movie. But I feel like some of the other characters, the love interest, the knight, the other characters around the castle, like all of them feel like really bad guest stars on a TV show. Does that make sense?
I get you. Yeah.
As opposed to actual characters in a movie, as weird as that sounds. And I think that kind of drags it down a little bit for me in overall quality. And I wish I cared about at least one of them. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Or something. Or at least I wish it remembered to be more of a horror movie in the last act or whatever. It kind of revolves around being a big battle, and it's like, yeah, like the car stuff's great, but I'm not really here to see Ash sword fight with someone. Like, I don't want him to have a duel, right?
Yeah.
I want him to have maybe a chainsaw duel, maybe.
I think it'd be fun.
But yeah, so I think for me, I'm going to give it a solid 7. So that's where I land. So there's a lot of good stuff there, but I do think I think the more I've seen it, the more I critique some of the, the more lackluster elements of it, I guess.
That's fair. Yeah.
So there you go. That's our Evil Dead Army of Darkness review. If you made it this far in the review, put the phrase "Hail to the King, baby" in the comments to let us know you got this far. I'm going to make Tim pose for the thumbnail. Tim.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, pose. Just a happy face. Okay. Just a happy Timmy.
Sometimes that's what you get.
So yeah, you can let us know what you thought of the movie, of course, in the comments. Please do like and subscribe. Like is super important on YouTube. It's a nice, easy and free way to support us and show that you like the content and show that you want more, and help us find new audience members. And of course, we mentioned Patreon earlier, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, so have a look at that. You can get us on the Twitters at mailed, you can get us at mailed_fuzz, but more specifically for streams, you can get us at streams midnight for updates and jokes and whatever Tim does on there. Sometimes very cryptic tweets that don't make any sense. So trying to say for them. Otherwise, though, as the Octoberthon, look forward to more episodes. Hopefully, you've been enjoying these Evil Dead discussions, and we'll have Evil Dead 2013 for you next week, around the same time next week. So look forward to that. But otherwise, that's pretty much us. So yeah. So I mean, even though there's still one more to go, this is kind of the end of the original trilogy, because the 2013 one feels very separate and sort of later. But that is Army of Darkness. This has been Screams After Midnight, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies. And Tim, have you seen Killer Workout?